My computer's just a bit slow this morning, so it's taking a second. It's connecting to the cloud server. Just got to give it a second. I don't know whether it's the Wi-Fi here today. Still connecting, sorry. Ray, finally. If you want to start, Mark, I will battle the Facebook Live as you go.
Oh, thank you. Are we still not Facebook Live yet, or? Looks like we are. No.
Yeah, we are. You go.
All right, folks. Well, welcome to show 110 from Lip Balm, and this weekend we have the DADA weekend, celebrating such luminaries as Hannah Höch and, of course, Hugo Ball, Louis Aragon, Paul Eluard, Clement Parcier, Emmanuel Frey, Paul Dermay, Tristan Zara, of course, and André Breton, and many others. The question that I tried to address to myself before this started was, what the hell is DADA? All right. Of course, others will have their own thoughts on this as the show goes on, and tomorrow as well. But let's just start with a thought. So the way I perceive it is, after the First World War, or during the First World War, in fact, there was this need to, beat down the traditions and shake the whole art scene up, because in their mind, these artists felt that something was needed. But it was also, of course, a reaction against sort of bourgeois and colonial interests and that sort of thing that had been happening prior to that. And their approach was one of humor, making fun of everything. There's nothing that cannot be made fun of, and there's nothing that can't be stretched and put back together again. And in a way, Dada, of course, inspired surrealism, pop art, and some critics even think was the inception of maybe postmodernism. But anyway, it was a hugely important movement that ignited a new way of looking at art on any level: literature, dance, music, painting, of course, sculpture. And of course, there were several manifestos written, one by Zara himself, and in his Dada manifesto, Tristan Zara explains how to make a Dadaist poem. It's a poem in itself. So this is called How to Make a Dada, or To Make a Dadaist Poem. Take a newspaper, take some scissors, choose from this paper an article of length you want to make your poem. Cut out the article. Next, carefully cut out each of the words that makes up this article and put them all in a bag. Shake gently. Next, take out each cutting one after the other. Copy conscientiously in the order in which they left the bag. The poem will resemble you. And there you are, an infinitely original author of charming sensibility, even though unappreciated by the vulgar herd. And at this note, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Jonathan Penton, who can't be here today for family reasons. And Cassandra's going to read one of his poems. Jonathan founded Unlikely Stories a long time ago, and he's lent his assistance to many ventures, including the New Orleans Poetry Festival. In 2005, he founded his Unlikely Books, who publish 3 to 5 books of poetry a year. He's organized literary performances across the United States. His most recent books are painting rust and prosthetic gods, and then standards of Saturday. And you can download his free e-chat book, Backstories from Argotist eBooks. And Cassandra's going to read one of Jonathan's
I
poems.
do. I have a Hyben. Because he's not here, he wasn't able to bring himself and his DADA poetry with him. So it's just a short Hyben from Jonathan. I couldn't understand why Subway didn't have mushrooms, so I called the corporate office and asked. The person who answered the phone didn't know, which didn't surprise me, so I asked to be transferred to someone who might know. Eventually, I got to talk with a vice president of Subway. She told me that they didn't have mushrooms because mushrooms have too short a shelf life. I said, thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Too young for grey beards, we found ways to burn eggs and ate scorched tater tots. So that's Jonathan's Hyben in his absence.
Thank you, Cassandra. And next we hear from you yourself, who are an award-winning writer, scholar of prose poetry, and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia. Cassandra's most recent books of prose poetry are Pre-Raphaelite, Leftovers, and Fugitive Letters. She's currently writing a book of prose poetry on the atomic bomb with funding from the Australia Council. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry and introduction, which came out from Princeton U Press, and the Anthology of Australian Poetry. Cassandra's commissioning editor for Westerly magazine, a great magazine. I urge you to check it out.
Thank you. Well, I don't write a DADA poetry either. I think a few people call me the sex poet in Melbourne, which is fine by me. And I also write a lot of work on the atomic bomb. But I did find, much to my excitement, a DADA translator online. I encourage you to take your poems, put it into the translator, hit the button and see what pops out. So I have put one of my poems on the Romantics into the DADA translator. And here is my perfectly created DADA poem. Of a way, cut not knees to her open. Take madness yours, she's no words, and to place pretty my deliverance neck. Her heaths from Godwin vindications are yours, fluid, but ours and Seraglio. Strong blasted, she's Matilda, but she'll not take poets. With hot drawn hush, don't like her, good she is, but my waltz. Her is from me or for deathbed, from yet she will yield, seduce unnaturally. And I'd like to introduce Mark. Mark Vincennes, as I know you all know, is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, a translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He has published over 20 books of poetry, including more recently Einstein Fledermaus, The Little Book of Earthly Delights, A Brief Conversation with Consciousness, There Might Be a Moon or a Dog, back here in Australia, 39 Wonders and Other Management Issues, just released from Spite and Dival, and The Pearl Diver of Irunmani, forthcoming early 2023 from White Pine Press. If that isn't enough, he has an album of music, ambience, and verse, Left Hand Clapping, forthcoming from Tree Torn Records. Vincennes is also a prolific translator. He's translated from, join in, German, Romanian, and French. He has published 11 books of translations, most recently an Audible Blue Selected Poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Mertz, just out from White Pine Press. He's currently working on a brilliant novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincennes is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. And here's the bit we all love. Join in. He has lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but now lives on a farm in rural Western Massachusetts overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are more, drumroll, northern mole crickets, fork-tailed bush katydids, and arrowhead orb weavers than people. Now, I had to actually look up katydid this morning, and I hear it's a group of insects. So I'm impressed that you've gone like the insect route for this week, Mark.
I love it. I love insects. Insects are amazing, actually. Also, the way that their bodies are built. But that's another science fictional novel I'm working on. Anyway, this is called No Exit. We dropped into a seedless pod. We wanted to stay alive. We walked the hallways of banks and offices. We spent time at the municipal court. We courted, doted, and kowtowed. We ran a dog food factory. We collected food stamps. We labored overtime. We struck out. We laid it on thick. We turned in our early graves. We seeded. We conceded. We followed the sweet, watery noise. We agreed without consequence. We flowed and we flushed. We turned up. We suffered them out. We moved into questionable districts. We were fed up. We won in court. We lost everything and anything at all. We founded dynasties. We compartmentalized. We survived again and again. We rationalized. We found our frown. We collected mushrooms, woodworms, ran out of juice. We found a home we had once known. We fished. We angled. We made a truce. We embraced our ghost. We ran deep and battled and embittered ourselves. We ran still. We soybeans. We bounded in servitude. We born and bred. We in our own company. We who are running from when the light and wind rises. We shifting streams. We fish or pheasant. We from the first dawn. We on a little planet on the rim of the galaxy. We bigger than ourselves. We immortals. We taken in by our own voices, our behest or our own Stockholm syndrome. We who cannot reach from the darkening shore. We who need a paddle or a puddle, who smell of rain, who are leaves suddenly moving upward, who are dry, furry, or blind, who are chasing a cat, who have a fear of strong winds, who are at odds with heaven's light, who grow and stretch in all directions, who laugh and don't say, you too? The fire in the eye, the sad tale deconstructed from the firmament and the fragments, the letters we've written, the word, always the word, that's something that took the whole afternoon. And mind your place, mind whose noses twitch, who opens forever, who is the sound of trees, who is the salt flood, or just a steady wind. Stand by. I don't know if you'd really call that Dadaist or Surrealist or, but I think there's a bit of Dada in there, personally. Anyway, let us move on to our feature today. And first, we hear from Brussels-based Belgian multilingual poet and performer Philip Meersman, who pushes boundaries of poetry in both written and spoken form, drawing on current affairs, socio-political and environmental issues. Philip teaches avant-garde visual and performance poetry worldwide and is curator of Poetry Fest Brussels and is president of the World Poetry Slam organization. Philip is a Master in Art Sciences and Archaeology at the Flemish Free University of Brussels and is currently completing his PhD at the AP University College of Antwerp on the transformation of visual poetry into an immersive experience. Philip turns his poems into sculptural location-bound works of art and dates them just as visual artists do. He also provides his poems with a marker of the creation location and defines the used writing techniques and materials. There Is Blue Somewhere is therefore not only a collection, but also a travel chronicle and an exhibition catalog. And There Is Blue just came out from Cyberwit in 2020. And his other recent book is This Is Belgian Chocolate, Manifestations of Poetry from Three Rooms Press. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. We already have saved our daylight, so we are already 1 week ahead with that. Well, on the question, what is Dada? I think it's very interesting to sort of see that different sort of languages or different forms of visual and experimental languages always sort of evolve when people cannot find the true words anymore due to different wars. And I think if you study, you will see that different visual poetry and experimental poetry forms mostly start in or around wars. If you sort of look at Dada, if you look at Cobra and the new Dadaists in the 50s, if you sort of look at the 60s, 70s, and also during the Afghan wars, and then later on in the Iraqi wars. So I think that there definitely it's sort of like the moment where language in itself as such is not enough to state the state in which we are. So that's for me, I think, is Dada and experimental poetry in itself. What I want to share with you is a poem called Disappearance. And it's very much related to the war topic, which is not so far away from us at the moment, sadly. So it's called Disappearance. A permanent population in a defined territory. Government and the capacity to enter into relations with others, declared independence, which is recognized, a shuttle service, a city without smooth, measured, curved lines, land belonging to no one. Characteristics of the urban picture: Capricorn 1, Spartacus, Ambiorix, Glenn Miller, Alexei Lidovsky, God, news of the world, McDonald's, facts, figures, science fiction, the king, the queen, the president, peace, Sartre, Hawkins, 0, 1, war. We. Thank you.
Are you reading us another one?
You want another one? Okay.
Yeah, we want a couple. Yeah, definitely.
I want a couple. Something which is not too long. Let's see. There is one that is very much, which is called Tango del Sonnet, and it's in honor of Chlebnikov and Kamansky. So part of the Cubo-futurists movement, and on the contrary of what Marinetti always sort of said, the Cubo-futurists were not inspired by Marinetti. They did that completely by themselves. 1913, there is a Poema Konsa, which is the last poem in Russian. And it was performed twice by Gnedov, which is a completely white page. But this is Tango del Sonnet in honor of Khlebnikov and Kamansky, and it's more like a sort of scenario type of based thing. And it's a sonnet for 5 voices. Beginning position, the 5 poets stand upright with their straight back and their head up, side by side, facing the audience and roughly ordered according to their length. They all have their mouths firmly closed and are in silence. The poet in the middle gives the sign to start the poem. He does that by turning his upper body to the right and stretching his left arm out in line with his shoulders, fingers side by side like a divine hand. First stanza, all except the middle poet do a step back with their right foot. They step simultaneously and hard. The step is heard. They mouth expressively without sound. The middle poet puts his arms beside his body and turns his upper body back as before. They all step forth with their right foot. They step simultaneously and hard. So the step is heard. Second stanza. The poet in the middle turns his upper body to the right and stretches his left arm out in line with his shoulders, fingers side by side like a divine hand. All except the middle poet do a step back with their right foot and place their left foot after the second step, back and to the left as they would want mirror an L shape. They mouth expressively without sound. The middle poet puts arms beside his body and turns his upper body back as before. Third stanza. The poet in the middle turns his upper body to the right and stretches his left arm out in line with his shoulder, fingers side by side like a divine hand. They mouth expressively without sound. Fourth stanza. The poet in the middle turns his upper body to the right and stretches his left arm out in line with his shoulders, fingers side by side like a divine hand. They mouth expressively without sound. The middle poet puts his arms beside his body and turns his upper body back as before. Fifth stanza. The poet in the middle turns his upper body to the left and stretches his arm out in line with his shoulders, fingers side by side like a divine hand. He whispers expressively at the end of his movement. Sixth stanza. All poets turn on their feet, so they all face right and slide their right foot one step forward, slide their left foot till the place where both feet are back together again. They turn their heads left forward, lift in a swift but decisive movement and say in a normal voice, Seventh stanza. All poets turn on their feet, so they all face left. They turn their heads right forward, right in a swift but decisive movement and say in a normal voice, After that, they all face forward again. Eighth stanza. The middle poet walks gently in between around the other poets as if he is making figures of 8 around them. He does that from middle till right, turning around till left and turning till middle. After they are facing the audience, the middle poet starts a hum. And then they all shout louder and louder, A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O. Thank you.
That was spectacular.
Thank you very much.
Amazing, amazing.
I will end with WRT, which is war written, and this was it's within the same type of problematics that we are facing here in Europe at the moment. Story, painting, picture, book, history, amnesty. Concentration, camouflage, foxholes, preemptive strike, blitzkrieg, shoot and scoot, run and gun, ambush, skirmish, scorch earth, booby trap, minefield, Smurfs in, Smurfs out, declaration, headline news, torture, slaughter, plunder, rape, story, painting, picture, book, history, amnesty, amnesty. What were you saying? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. A good way to enter this evening tonight. Next, we're going to hear from Charles Bernstein, and Charles has provided us with several video poems that we'll be hearing through the course of of the weekend. And just so I'll only do this once. Charles is an American poet, essayist, editor, literary scholar. Everyone knows his achievements. And in 2019, he was awarded the Bollinger Prize from Yale University for the premier American prize for lifetime achievement. His most recent book is Topsy Turvy from University of Chicago Press. Cassandra, what do we have?
Okay, we have the first video he made for us is called Every True Religion. So you got me on my toes today. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to do all this extra work. I can't even chill out. Here we go. Hopefully you will be able to hear it. Let me know.
Every true religion is bound to fail. Only the divine truth reveals itself in lies. Smarter truths disguise themselves as fundament or wise. On the way from dusk to dark, slip to slap, pitch to black, a haze cries sudden slow, searing sworn, betraying delays, sullied song. Every true monument lays in shards, layered with tongues. The trip to caution foments alarm, has lulled to passion. Action never reverses wrong. No certainty ever could cancel right. Tried syrup for a while, round of sweetness for ton of tears, fault of fellows, rusty melons that mock the girls and make us dry. Mock the curls and make men sigh.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't know if I would call that Dadaist on any level, but anyway, it was interesting.
It's a good reading.
Of course, I mean, anything that is language is also Dada, of course, I suppose. Here's just a little section of Tristan Tzara's manifesto. And this is Manifesto on Feeble Love and Bitter Love, part 13. Dada is a virgin microbe. Dada is against the high cost of living. Dada, a joint stock company for the explanation of ideas, Dada has 391 different attitudes and colors depending on the sex of the chairman. It transforms itself, affirms, simultaneously says the opposite. It doesn't matter, screams, goes fishing. Dada is the chameleon of rapid, interested change. Dada is against the future. Dada is dead. Dada is idiotic. Hurrah for Dada. Dada is not a literary school roar. Is it not a literary school roar? What do you think, Andrew?
It is, and it isn't. It both is and isn't.
I see. So it lives in the space in between.
Exactly.
Which is where the shaman finds his power. How was that? You still there? Andrew?
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, did you hear me or?
Yes, I heard you. Sometimes the Dada response is silence.
Ah, I see. Let me introduce Andrew Joron, who is a poet, essayist, and speculative fiction writer. His poetry collections include The Absolute Letter, Trance Archive, New and Selected Poems, The Sound Mirror, Fathom, and The Removes. Andrew's work of speculative fiction, 0O or O0, was published by Black Square Editions just this year. The Cry at Zero, a selection of his prose poems and critical essays, was published by Counterpath in 2007. From the German, Andrew has translated the literary essays of Marxist utopian philosopher Ernst Bloch and The Perpetual Motion Machine by the proto-Dada fantast Paul Scherbert. And as a musician, Andrew plays the theremin in various experimental and free jazz ensembles, and teaches at San Francisco State University. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, glad to be here. So I want to pick up on what Philip was saying about Dada having originated in the wake of war. The original Dadaists gathered in Zurich during World War I, and they were completely appalled by the destruction, the mass production of death, First Industrial War. They thought European culture had discredited itself, and they just wanted to tear everything down. So the spirit of negation is one of the defining features of Dada. And when it came to language, they wanted to break language down into its little bits, into crumbs of sound. And we heard some of that sound in the work that Philip was reading. So I want to read a sound poem. So there are many different kinds of Dada poems. Cut up poems, as Mark alluded to. He read us the cut up text from Zara, and that reaches, that has influence all through the 20th century and beyond. We see it reemerging in the cut up experiments of William Burroughs in the beat movement. But the other kind of Dada poem is the sound poem that breaks language down into its little crumbs and bits. So I want to read a poem by Hugo Ball, a sound poem by Hugo Ball, who was one of the founders of Dada. This is a sound poem that you might have heard at the Cabaret Voltaire around about 1915. Tresli, Besli, Nebogen, Laila, Flush, Kata, Balu, Bash, Tsak, Siti, Chop, Tsak, Hiti, Chop, Hiti, Betsli, Betsli, Prush, Kata, Balu, Bash, Fash, Kitty, Bim, Siti, Kitilabi, Bilabi, Bilabi, Siko, Di, Tsako, Bum, Fish, Kitty, Bish, Bumbalo, 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 Bambo, Siti, Kitilabi, Tsak, Hiti, Chop, Tresli, Besli, Nebogen, Grugu, Blaulala, Viola Bimini, Bish, Viola Bimini, 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 Fush, Kata, Balu, Bash, Sik, Hiti, Chop. And so that was Hugo Ball, a bunch of mostly German phonemes being mixed and matched in that sound poem. One of the inheritors of the Dada sound poem is Philip Lamantia. He's an American poet. He's usually associated with surrealism and the beat movement. He came up during World War II as a teenager. He's a native Californian, but he journeyed to New York to meet with the surrealists in exile during World War II in New York. But later on, he developed a mode of sound poetry that he called babble. And he explicitly reaches back to the Dada sound poets for this. It was also a mixture of other influences, including jazz. Philip Lamantia is a noted jazz poet as well. So jazz, scat singing, Dada sound poetry, Native American chant. This all goes into his version of sound poetry. And he has a mini manifesto that I'm going to read for you here. So I'll put his name in chat in case some of you aren't familiar with him. Philip Lamantia, widely considered the greatest American surrealist poet. Sorry, I misspelled his last name there. Lamantia. But as we know, surrealism grew out of Dada, and those Dada roots of surrealism are very alive and well in the poetry of Philip Lamantia. So he died in 2005 here in San Francisco. And I had the privilege of knowing him and co-editing his collected poems from University of California Press. So here's his statement on babble sound poetry. Babble is a language extending the sonic level of the poem in pure song flight to maximum points and turned out to further dimensions connotative, denotative languages cannot reach. Babble furthers greater sonic energy output within connotative, denotative writing by work done in heights and depths of lettered sounds. Any poet worth their salt can make babble poems. It is important to get onto sound level and sound flow, resisting connotative language surging from open, absolute sound of letters. My experience in babble maps a world of sonic trance. An act of abandon to this trance must be made in order to quickly transcribe the sound of it into letters proceeding directly from it. Spontaneous, immediate transcription. And here's where he calls out his debt to Dada. Also, by descending scale of relation to lettrist, gongorist, Dadaist sound poems, certain poems in a Spanish-Latin meld by Sor James Joyce when he wrote in pure sounds, Hugo Ball, jazz, scat talk. Further research will reveal Babel's intrinsic tie-in to legendary one language, the Tower of Babel. Babel poetry is immediately communicable. Poets of all tongues babble. Okay, so I will read this poem, which is Philip Lamantia's version of the Dadaist sound poem, Babel. Ali ben Buti da Asalium, Perez, Hadiscum, Shantan, Tibulil, Dakamuri, Sigur, Tiuti, Stanto, Ragamu, Anta, Pastogo, Hibil, Tahama, Orana, Karana, Sen, Set, Defea, Apantal, U, Tuti, Aganta, Lahara, Shamantur, Pulutiago, Napol, Tanat, Shabara Tuhuf, Tam Anta Tibiri Jibi, Titutu, Iti, Koko, Pasta, Bushli, Upu, Single, Dama, Tuti, Paslato, Shu, Gua, Taktut, Ubu Bit, Tishpun, Nana, Har. Astun, Tag, Ale, Leti, Tus, Mada, Tus, Midi, Di, Tus, Egrut. Allora, come, vota, tamara, se, bule, fatalora, scuda, emata, genica, facosa, parota, tihuma, ostian, gereba, kalkuhaman, hansar, pudi, hamakatamal, o, sibaral. A, scanti, kudalaba, chetsin, turia, ai, she, galaba, urami, Sheyada sputam kikotam. Eglabari rutu komputi beachtopam seloya. Freinaga voice jaban edaba pedaba edaba derelayo alilo insa makanti fulgabam olabebia ruta senta badiviao otori raganduri sekom panti isha pantavari Impotrex, La Luga, Mehanda, Puspura. Okay, and that was Philip Lamantia, great surrealist poet, but channeling Dada in that moment. And since I'm going to be around tomorrow, I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Amazing to hear some other languages that haven't existed before, as far as we know. Yeah. Next, we hear from Heide Hatry and Jane LaCroix. Heide is a German artist based in New York, best known for her body-related performances and her work employing animal flesh and organs or other discarded, disdained, or taboo materials, and has aroused controversy. She often is described as a neo-conceptualist whose work operates, transcends, transgresses, or transforms the normal relationship of the artist to both audience and work. Among her fundamental preoccupations are identity, gender roles, specifically what it means to be a woman, the nature of aesthetic experience and the meaning of beauty, the effects of knowledge upon perception, the human exploitation of the natural world, and the social oblivion that permits atrocity to persist in our midst. And Jane is a New York-based poet, singer, performance artist, and home birthing mother of three, who fronts the avant pop band The Icebergs and the spontaneous experimental music project Slice. She's
Okay.
toured with the San Francisco band.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah, I know. I want to. Okay.
Did I miss say something or?
No, everything is good.
Okay. Jane has toured with the San Francisco-based all-women's troupe Sister Spit. She also performs as a featured character in the immersive theater experience Poetry Brothel, New York City. Among her many publications and recordings, her chapbook Names was published by the Art House Press, Brooklyn, in award-winning ABC chapbook series that was purchased by the Library of Congress along with her Braid. Three Rooms Press published Signature Play, a multimedia book of lyrical poems, including a nomination for a Pushcart Prize. The Smithsonian has many of her poems included in their Fast Folk Archive, all available through them. Jane teaches poetry all over New York City and publishes her students' works. The Icebergs and On Slice are both available on imaginatorrecords.com. Welcome, Jane and Heidi.
We want to start our video.
Oh, I just thought you did. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Can you see us?
We can.
Well, I am nothing.
Blah, blah,
You are nothing.
blah, blah.
Each one of us was dealt a rough hand, each person on every continent with varying capabilities and means.
Blah, blah, blah,
Every flower too,
blah, blah,
fish and
blah,
butterflies.
blah, blah, blah,
Each one dealt
blah, blah,
such a rough
blah,
hand.
blah, blah,
The
blah.
chance of existing almost zero,
blah, blah,
coming from nothing,
blah,
and then
blah,
precarious, brief,
blah,
existence.
blah, blah,
The needs
blah.
of living things just keep
blah,
renewing.
blah, blah,
Will never
blah,
be done.
blah,
Drinking
blah,
water or
blah,
peeing or
blah,
eating or
blah,
shitting,
blah, blah,
fucking,
blah,
masturbating or
blah, 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 blah,
the needs just go,
blah, blah,
go,
blah,
processing
blah,
things, putting
blah,
them in, changing them out,
blah, blah,
pushing them
blah,
out, putting them
blah,
in.
blah,
The thoughts become
blah,
things, things become
blah,
thoughts.
blah,
We forget, we lose, it all
blah,
dissipates.
blah,
The masses come
blah,
together
blah,
to
blah,
dance and
blah,
mate and
blah,
sing and
blah,
storm and
blah,
murmurate.
blah, blah,
And they come
blah,
apart and
blah,
fall
blah,
to pieces,
blah,
to peace, peace
blah,
to war.
blah,
War
blah,
leaves
blah,
nothing,
blah,
a big empty
blah,
hole
blah,
where there was a
blah,
home.
blah,
Cities
blah,
rise
blah,
by digging
blah,
holes in
blah,
the land.
blah,
The city falls
blah,
in
blah,
war to
blah,
rubble and dust,
blah,
to become a
blah,
memory,
blah,
a ghost that
blah,
haunts
blah,
and makes another
blah,
war,
blah, blah,
a sickness from nothing.
blah,
It's always something, the nothing. The
blah,
ruin is real. Nothing is real. We
blah,
see the nothing destroy lives and leave a whole lot
blah,
of death
blah,
and piles of nothing
blah,
rolling
blah,
through
blah,
history. Barbaric. It
blah,
is history.
blah,
A big
blah,
O, a letter like a
blah,
hole, an O,
blah,
a capital
blah,
O,
blah,
the capital to a
blah,
whole.
blah,
Zeros, so many
blah,
zeros amount
blah,
to nothing.
blah,
One
blah,
nothing,
blah,
same as
blah,
another
blah,
nothing.
blah,
You,
blah,
me,
blah,
them,
blah,
it all, it
blah,
comes
blah,
to, it
blah, blah,
comes to
blah,
nothing.
blah, blah,
Nothing and keeps coming, a whole of nothing, rolling.
blah,
Nothing
blah,
is just a
blah,
word. We
blah,
make nothing with
blah,
the
blah,
idea
blah,
of nothing.
blah,
It's
blah,
ours.
blah,
Our
blah,
words did it.
blah, blah,
There was not nothing
blah,
before the word
blah,
nothing.
blah, blah,
Words,
blah,
inert as
blah,
glass.
blah,
They have no
blah,
impact,
blah,
but you can see
blah,
through them
blah,
and they can distort the
blah,
surface so
blah,
you see other things.
blah,
Words can hold
blah,
things the
blah,
way glass does
blah, blah,
and shatter
blah,
so
blah,
fast they become
blah,
useless,
blah,
sharp
blah,
dust and
blah,
shards.
blah,
And when they are broken, they can hurt.
blah,
And then are they
blah,
inert? Glass
blah,
and words. One
blah,
is abstract and one
blah,
is of the physical
blah,
realm. Lenses.
blah, blah,
Which is more real?
blah,
It
blah,
doesn't matter.
blah,
Nothing
blah,
matters
blah,
except for
blah,
every
blah,
little
blah,
thing,
blah,
like each
blah,
eyelash,
blah,
each
blah,
blade
blah,
of grass,
blah, blah,
each grain of
blah,
sand and
blah,
dust,
blah,
dust,
blah,
dust.
blah,
fossils and seeds and clouds and music and coal and graphite. I cry every day to wash my eyes. They get so dirty from seeing. And in a blink, it's gone. Zero. Nothing. Like it never even was there. And I laugh to clear my lungs. And it's not funny. And it's so funny and sad and terrible and wonderful and beautiful. And it all comes and cancels each other out. The great equilibrium. He was always telling us about it, his lists and long sentences of everything and nothing, and how are the same, the multitudes. I used to dream about my lover every night for years and years, and then he moved far away into different times, and he wasn't in my dreams anymore. And he wasn't everything. It comes back to O, 0, 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 it's nothing, nothing at all.
Thank you, Heidi and Jane. You got another one for us, or just the one?
Nothing. 0. Oh.
Okay, guys. Thanks so much. Amazing. Next, we hear from Valery Oisteanu, who is a poet, writer, and artist of the avant-garde, born in the USSR in 1943 and educated in Romania. He debuted as a poet with his collection Prosthesis in 1970 with Litera Press in Bucharest. At the age of 20, he adopted Dada and Surrealism as his philosophy of art and life, and a few years later, English as his primary language. He emigrated to New York City in 1972, and he's been writing in English for the past 45 years. He's the author of 18 books of poetry, a book of short fiction, and a book of essays, The Avant-Gods. His two new books are In the Blink of a Third Eye from Spite and Dival in 2020, and Perks in Purgatory, translated in Romanian from Ithaca Publishing in Dublin, and was chosen Best Poetry Book of the Year in Dysphoria and recipient of the Kathy Acker Award for contribution to the American avant-garde poetry and in performance. He is known as the voice of the East Village. Welcome, Valery.
Thank you. Thank you, Vincent. So I'm going to read from my book In a Blink of a Third Eye, a poem I wrote for the centenary anniversary of Dada. And there were so much activities going on in Europe, in United States, in Zurich especially. They tried to monetize Dada. They tried to make money. They reopened the Cabaret Voltaire. They booked 369 different performances there. And I thought something is not right about that. So I wrote several essays and poems criticizing this kind of monetizing and vulgarizing the Dada movement. So this poem, it's called Dada Not on Tour. Supra-Dadaists flagellate the milk ghost of imposters 100 years along in a bird's cemetery, inside a fluid skeptic clock deep in a dark fish tank, outside of the dolphins' underwater cave temples, with the Tsar of Dada, Tristan Tzara, Daddy Dada of simultaneity, broken Dada without borders, Japono Dada, occulti Dada portal into the planetary sagacity. De Quincey was Dada. Alfred Jarry, the prophet, was Dada. Tristan Zaratrusta shouts disgust. Imagination Dada in the other side of the train of thought's tracks. Swiss bourgeois derogatory, put down, Dadaistan. Not a great night at the Cabaret Voltaire. Too many Dadas. Dada, a mind exercise of free association, revolution encompassing sex, drugs, and art. Dada is nada. Dada is nada. Just a backward time traveler, a chance illusionistic mislead on purpose. Tempest, temple, Templar. Tempest, temple, Templar. Dada is not a cult. It's the noise. Anti-life lifestyle. Battle throughout human silence. Self-destructive. Deja jadi. Lost in the past. Spiritual Dada fiber optics. Synaptic synapses. Defending the devastation of the deep sea. The uber coincidence could not be televised. Transgender mannequins on ceramic bicycles. Invisible acrobats flying over the limpid wind. Neo-Dada, not sponsored by Mensa. Dada, not on tour. Dada eludes cultural poachers. Were you in an art coma? Were you in an art coma during the last century? Resistance to hierarchic, radical subconsciousness. You probably woke up as a post-surrealist, analog artist in a digital Dada world. Smashed bipolar dementia of the art market, of tyranny, of unachievable, lugubrious prices. Occupy century of uncompromising art. Occupy the impossible, misunderstood dreams, a mix of trance and brain miasmas, approximative women's tranquilidad, mysterious emotion after discovering my muse. Dada, Dada, Dada.
Was your picture on it?
So this was a poem criticizing the Dada commercialism. So another, I don't see myself on the screen. I think you should put me on a screen.
You have the whole screen. So
Okay.
I think it's just your computer, but it's recording you full screen.
Okie doke. So this other poem, it's called Fado Dada. It was written in Portugal, in Lisbon. And I'm mentioning a couple of Portuguese things that. So Fado Dada. It's in a neighborhood where there were some interesting Dadaists and Surrealists in Portugal. Alfama, Alfama, of the very narrow streets of Lisbon, where tiled dreams are sprayed with glue, where birds with cork beaks fight for the ledges, where ghosts are deep fried and sold to tourists. There the sun shines only for half a minute. Broken cobblestone crying under the feet of fado singers at night. Broken dreams of a homeless woman with young Mozambique eyes. Stay calm and enjoy the cork. Everything is made out of cork. Even Marilyn Monroe is a pocketbook of cork. Black student robes fly off the clotheslines. Alfama, Alfama, center of reverse gravity, of surreal graffiti. The monastery looms large and chimes incessantly, the Queen and King of Portugal enjoy a noisy afternoon. Tuk-tuk drivers equipped with abrasive shouts, smashing the tower of bell and bubble cacophony. Pessoa absinthe not sold here. Muscatel, Ginja, and Porto. 2 fat chef cooks, pork fat, and chicken gizzards, paving a path to multiple personality disorder. Alvaro de Campos, blessings. Ricardo de Reis, disquietude. The road to Coimbra is paved with jagged lives. I regress slowly into Pessoa. Pessoa, smoking a long pipe. Words flow, a spell to enter the 7 gates of Fado Dada. Thank you. And I'm going to close with a poem, anti-war poem, because Dada was principal art movement against the war. And we are living now inside war between Russia and Ukraine. So this poem, it's called Welcome to Putin Archipelago. And it's about how Putin gets rid of all of his opponents, including this poem I dedicated to Nemtsov, a major opponent to Putin who was shot in front of Kremlin. On a bridge to Red Square lay the body of Nemtsov, shot 4 times in the back beside the Kremlin wall. Here slept Lenin, here slept Stalin. Where is the hope to end war, to end corruption? Oh, Russia of my childhood, of Mayakovsky's Moscow. Watch the convoy of trucks as a diversion, tanks and missiles rumbling toward Kiev's front. Cossacks against Maidan fascists, brother against brother. Watch Putin the Great seize more territory. Crimea, part of soul of every Russian. Crimea, the fist of aggression against the West. Donetsk, connected to Mother Russia, the new Russia. Yes, the new Russia, the Putin archipelago grows and grows. South Ossetia, part of Georgia, Abkhazia and Chechnya, and the rest of the Gulag. Annexation syndrome, grab east of Ukraine, while the West is grudgingly sleepwalking, 6,000 civilian dead, discouraged, missing, unpronounceable names of destroyed villages, legislation change, opposition killed, reformers jailed. The Russians are still marching past St. Basil Cathedral, past the Kremlin, chiming watchtowers. No hope inside, no hope, no freedom of thoughts for decades. Reverse epiphany of planetary love and hate. Pussy Riot in exile, Kasparov in exile, Navalny in prison, and so many before. Boris Nemtsov, another martyr silenced. Thank you very much. I am Valery Oisteanu, the voice of East Village.
Thank you, Valery. An amazing show. Yeah, and thank you, Philip Meersman, Andrew Joron, Charles of Bernstein, of course, and Heide Hatry and Jane Croy, and Valery as well. And before we move to the open mic section of this lip balm, I'm going to read a poem by Richard Hülsenbeck, who was one of the founders of the movement, of the Dadaist movement. And on the tails of Valery's last poem, this is called The End of the World, 1916. This is what things have come to in this world. The crows sit on the telegraph poles and play chess. The cockatoo under the skirts of the Spanish dancer sings as sadly as headquarters burglar and the cannon lament all day. That is the lavender landscape Herr Meyer was talking about when he lost his eye. Only the fire department can drive the nightmare from the drawing room, but all the hoses are broken. Ah, yes, Sonia. They all take the celluloid doll for a changeling and shout, "God save the king." The whole monist club is gathered on the steamship, Meyerbeer, but only the pilot has any conception of high sea. I pull the anatomical atlas out of my toe. A serious study begins. Have you seen the fish that have been standing in front of the opera in cutaways for the last 2 days and nights? Ah, ye great devils, ye keepers of the bees and commandants, with a bow, wow, wow, with a bow, woe, woe, who today does not know what our father Homer wrote. I hold peace and war in my toga, but I'll take a cherry flip. Today, nobody knows whether he was tomorrow. They beat time with a coffin lid. If only someone had the nerve to rip up the tail feathers out of the trolley car. It's a great age. The professors of zoology gather in the meadows. With the palms of their hands, they turn back the rainbows. The great magician sets the tomatoes on his forehead. Again, thou hauntest castle and grounds. The roebuck whistles, the stallion bounds. And this, how the world is this, is all that's ahead of us. So it's not just nonsense in there. There's something a lot more. But I'd like to thank everyone for this amazing feature for the DADA weekend part 1. Tomorrow we also have an enticing weekend. And I think most of you know, tomorrow we have Vic Shirley, Gareth Jenkins, Elsie Huchek, Tony Kitts, and Andrew Joron again, Lloyd Schwartz, and Carla Harriman. So please do join us for that. Yeah, I think we will find a lid to put on top of the Dada thought. And so I pass the mic over to my esteemed colleague, Cassandra, for continuing in Dada open mic.
Yes, we have a great open mic. I'm very excited to say that Karen is going to be first. We love it when Karen reads. She's been popping in and out. She's very popular, but we've managed to pin her down today and get her to read something for us. So Karen, you are up.
Okay, thank you. That was a fantastic reading, everyone. I'm going to read my poem that's in Montanon 16. It's called, "This Poem Doesn't Want to Talk About the War." Who? We, said the industrialists, the politicians, the lobbyists, the capitalists, the deniers, the totalitarians, the oligarchs, the fascists. We killed the future. And who'll ring the bells? No one, said the wind. No one will be left to toll the bells. That's it. Thank you.
Wow, that was really powerful. We killed the future and the bell tolling. Thank you so much. It's always wonderful to hear you read. So please come back anytime and read more for us. Maggie is up next. Maggie is new, but I'm excited to hear what she has for us.
This is thrilling. I have not been here before. Just discovered you guys and I'm very inspired. Though not particularly Dada, but this is a non-traditional poem, I think. It's called Miss Alabaster. Miss Alabaster had a great terror of flying. Knees and elbows cracked in flight and dresses blew over her head. Planes and birds shrieked gleefully at the surface cracks and geese's quacks. In the stratosphere, there is little to say and less to do, nothing to eat. She swallowed cirrus, spat out cumulus, blew past the sun in the ocean of her eyes, and laughed at God and the baggage handlers. White remains her favorite color: pearl, teal, ivory, scarlet. She is quite the world traveler, if there were someplace to go.
Thank you so much. Surface cracks and geese's quacks. I love that. Thank you so much. And yeah, come back anytime. I think we're heading for our 200 shows, I think, if we keep barreling along as we have. We love everyone here. It's like a big international poetry family. So thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
We have DeWitt coming from his chair, where he likes to muse on things that are lip balmish. So I'm always excited to hear what you've got. What are we having this week, DeWitt?
Well, I guess it's an attempt to hold your attention span. It's called Duration. Duracell, or ever ready, from Latin durare, to last. We endure boredom, pain, hardships. Eyes shut. I wait for the dentist drill to stop. Fleeting pleasures. Depth defies blank. Troilus waits for Cressida's return. We follow every detail of the prolonged and sickening process to despair, wrote C.S. Lewis. No one without reluctance reads it twice. We hope for durability of spirit and of goods. We prize sustainability, at least until we grow careless and complacent. One night stand or golden anniversary, constancy, friendship, wounds healed. We serve for the duration. Held breath or stretched note. Obdurate. We won't yield. Durance is punishment. They gave him life, no parole. Anticipation makes me wait. Spans long or brief. For art, for life. No motion is perpetual.
Loved it. I have to say, I think lasting the distance is important, even in a one night stand. So thank you, DeWitt. Always love your poems. So please come back with more, because we always want to hear them from the chair. So John Wessick is up next. We never quite know what he's going to have for us.
So I think information theory has something to say about meaning and originality, and maybe something about the difference between Dada and surrealism. So here's a poem called Theory of Meaning. Insight turns its back on the predictable, the cop show endings and fast food flavors, all chase scenes, convictions, and high fructose corn syrup. It faces the hot wind of entropy, blowing from the infinite space of wild ideas, where Wanda's promiscuity rides a unicycle and the federal deficit scales an electric fence in a blue raincoat. One false step and meaning dissolves into gibberish and noise. Is there an archipelago of meaning, each island surrounded by chaos, or does it lie in some massive continent? Explorers go to sea in sloops and mystic caravels, so many shipwrecked on cities' sidewalks, bumming change and arguing with imaginary rivals. A few bringing gimmicks and gadgets return to heroes' welcomes. The best simply disappear from our horizons. I imagine them, their bliss complete on some new shore of understanding.
Loved it. And you also mentioned one of my favorite things, high fructose corn syrup, one of my absolute favorites. Love it on everything. We should have more of it in Australia. Thank you. We always love you reading. John, you're always a breath of fresh air. And you have a reading coming up as well that I think you posted in the chat. So
That's
maybe
right. Monday at 8 o'clock at Blue Waters. I'll post the Zoom thing again, 8 o'clock
Awesome.
Eastern.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. All right, you've been waiting for Cindy. I know. We keep her till last because of DeWitt's anticipation and the need to forge ahead with the brilliance that is Cindy. She is up next. Badass Poet, are you coming in from your gorgeous lounge room without a bay window?
Okay, with no bay window here. I do have a poem that I think is relevant for today. As everyone knows, no, everyone doesn't know this, but many of you know that I'm taking every letter of the alphabet and doing a little short alliterative poem for it. And this one, and I didn't write it specifically for this reading, but it works. It's called D is Not Only for Dada. So of course it's a D poem. Disco is decidedly dead, and so is democracy. Dystopian day dawning. Destination, darkness, my darlings. Would you do it with Dylan? Dilly-dally with Dolly? Dalliances with Dickinson, Doolittle, Don, and Desnos? There's a Dadaist. Drop drawers with Da Vinci or double dip, sorry, that was Freudian. Double dip with Degas, even though they're defunct. Dance dirty with De Gaulle, even though he's deceased. Do-si-do with the devil, then lie down on your derriere and doze deeply. Did you dig Howdy Doody in your heyday? We decent do-gooders and daydreamers are damn disgusted and disgruntled with this diseased and dysfunctional domain of dimwits, dodos, dopes, dorks, dullards, dunces, and dangerous dumbcuffs. And Mark can translate dumbcuff like crazy in the head. Okie dokie, Daddy, let's depart Dodge City and drive to Denmark. And don't you dare discuss a defense for the dastardly Donald who did so much dreadful damage to our daily discourse. Don't do that. Don't even. Oh dear, this dinky ditty is definitely done. Thank you.
That's one of the best ones. I love it. I love it. But I think maybe you need to, I think you need double dick in there somewhere to capture the Freudian. I think double dick needs to go in. Excellent. Okay, well, Anna's asked if she can read in the open. So we are going to go to Anna. Anna, what have you got for us? Anna, are you there? Yep, I can ask you to unmute, but you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes.
There you go.
I will read a poem that is actually popular with students, whenever I read somewhere. Just little history. I had a discussion with Rebecca Wolf, the editor of Fence, and she raised a question, is there a place for political poems today?
And I wrote a poem about this. If you come from Eastern Europe, I mean, it's a funny question, basically. Should a poem be political? Is there a place for political poems today? Should a poem contain feelings? Should a poem have content? We have only now begun looking at content in poetry. Should language poetry have language in it? Should poetry be accessible? What is poetry for? And if it is for something or other, is it poetry? Is a poem that has content and feelings modern? Is it cool or is it archaic? Should poetry be a linguistic crossword puzzle? Should it be conceptual or uber-conceptual? Is a poem a simulacrum or transubstantiation of the divine? Or is only a lousy poem a simulacrum? And then what should you do if you are seeking comfort and you're lonely and you need something beautiful or something to touch you or move you? A poem is not a laxative. And if you are sad, take a serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Thank you so much. I love asking poets what is poetry for. There's some of the most beautiful answers. There's lots of them on YouTube that you can access, quite famous people talking about that. So thank you. Thanks so much for joining us and for sharing that. It was great. We have the man himself to end the show, coming from his kitchen. The acoustics are great. His voice is great, but he has something different for us today. I can feel it in the air. Bob, are you coming in from your kitchen for us to finish up the show?
Yes, I am. Chickens, 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 chickens entering the room each time he cries out in his sleep.
Okay, that's one of my favorites ever. I will be chickened for the rest of the day. Oh my goodness. What a brilliant way to end, Mark. How are your chickens?
My chickens are cheapy. Here's a little one called Unlearning the Ropes, which is from Einstein Fledermaus. The Republic, they say, must be upheld at all costs. Thousands of fates are at stake, but almost no advice. What are your demands, they say? No, we are prepared to serve any loss as long as you stay 6 feet away. Her apathy is reflected in her face as she doles out soup and buttered bread. Which cloud, she says, scattering a handful of Parmesan. The old man sighs, remembering last summer when the bamboo reeds were green, remembering the abundance of bees. All of their prophecies come true, he says, blowing on his spoon. And he's probably eating Hungarian goulash or something like that, you know? which is always a lovely thing, especially with some great homemade dumplings. Thank you everybody for a wonderful, wonderful show, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Once again, thank you, Philip, Meersman from Belgium, Andrew, Joron, Charles Bernstein from New York City, Heide from Germany originally, but based in New York, Jane, and Valery Oisteanu. Thank you so much. And tomorrow, don't forget who we have in line. We have Vic Shirley, Gareth Jenkins, Elsie Huchek. We have Tony Kitt, Andrew Joron again, a little bit more of Charles Bernstein, Lloyd Schwartz, and Carla Harriman, who is quite a phenomenon, by the way. And the week after that, we have a special feature on the life and work of Peter Michelson, and I hope you'll join us for that. So thank you so much for tonight, and I hope to see you tomorrow, where we will continue the Dadaist insanity to its utmost extent. Lots of love and poetry. Have a great evening, everybody. See you soon. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you, Cassandra. Bye.
Peace, love, and chickens.